Hello and welcome back to my channel, Checks, Captures, Threats. In today's video, in episode 74 of the Chess Guide, it's going to be an example game between Mamedyarov and Fabio Caruana. So, this was a blitz game. Now, White did win this in the end, and he did actually get a brilliant move here, as you can see on the right, with an 84.8% accuracy against Caruana's 70.7%. So, let's go through this. So, it starts off with d4 here. Now, quite obviously a useful opening here, and knight f6 is now played. c4 and e6, we're now going into the Nimzo Indian, so quite a used line, so we'd expect to see that quite a few times. Knight c3 and bishop b4 is also played. So, now we also have queen c2, all known moves here, all book moves. Now d6, a little bit different to normal. This is where now you might see other moves like c5 get played, or even bring in the knight and castling. So, e4 played, very central move for Mamedyarov. Now castling, and the move e5, so it's still in the last book move here, e5, a very aggressive move, and this forces the knight back to d7. Not a good position here. As you can see, this knight can now really only go to this square, and this bishop is now trapped. Knight f3 now. Now this move, again, obviously just a simple development move, so all good. Now this is where c5 isn't probably the best here. Now, this is where you give up a pawn, but not really here, as we'll see now, you can take this pawn as black. After the recapture, you can win that pawn back. And black doesn't actually look too bad here. It's got a very nice bishop, but it's just these two pieces that are going to be the limiting factor here. So, bishop to e3 played, queen to e7, queenside castling. This was quite a big thing here. This is one of the bigger parts of this game. It's a huge queenside castling. Now, this knight move, not the best, but it's Caruana's really only way to get the knight out. And again, moving this knight out for this bishop, so the bishop can freely get out to that d7 square. Now, a3, obviously, great move, as it works to stop this and this knight move from actually entering that b4 square. Bishop to d7 now, again, as we say, simple development. Now, bishop to e2, I'm not the biggest fan. I don't know why I didn't go d3 here. Got a very nice opening there, but bishop to e5 played as well. Again, we can see the exact reason why. I do understand this mistake. You've got other moves like this, but I think another good move here is f4. So bishop goes back to c7. Again, not the best move here. Caruana making a few, maybe not the best moves, but obviously not the worst. And this is where Mamedyarov doesn't. Again, I'm going to say here that it's a very good move. You're now in line with the queen and you're centralizing a rook. So I don't really get why it's a mistake. Same thing there. Now bishop to f3. Again, just getting the pieces out here. And rook to d8 played. Now this is where Mamedyarov starts his pawn push attack. Now queen goes back. f5. Now after this knight comes in. g5. Now it has to retreat. Then you've got f6 here. So what is this? Obviously you could just capture the whole thing here. But that's obviously not going to be good because you just open up all the lines for this king, as I'll just show you here. You could try this, but you've got checks, and you're going to be losing quite quickly, as you've only got moves like this, and I would not try it, especially when you've got ideas like this as white. You're going to be losing as black, and very much so. So this position, bishop to e5 played. Again, I would say this is a very good move. Probably one of the only moves you could play here. Now this is where h4 is played. So you get this h4, g5, f6 chain. Now, don't get me wrong, moves like this can look good, but now, especially when you've got stuff like this push that can happen at a later stage, this could limit you to a very, especially obviously now you can't take, because, this is now open. It doesn't look like it, but it just takes two moves to get a rook across, and you're easily going to get that pawn. So you've got to be careful with how it works, and again, you can't do anything like h6, so that's why you have to play moves like that. He does, in fact, capture here, Caruana. Remember, this is a blitz game, so could be low on time as well. And after these captures, the bishop takes. Now, the reason the bishop takes here is if the rook does a check, then we can easily block here with the knight, queen, bishop, if the queen was to check as well. Now, queen f2 played, so he doesn't go for the check. Now, this actually could be trying to move up the board like this. And as bishop to a4 is played, there is a trade-off here. Very little pieces actually do go off the board here. That's one of the first, I think, minor pieces, other than a pawn, Those are one of the first pieces to go off the board. Now, rook to g1 check. King does move. This is where we get bishop to e4. Now, bishop to g7 again. One of the moves, as we said, has to be really played to stop any of this attack onto this king. But as we see here, it's just so dominant for white. You can see on the evaluation bar on the left here, 2.5 points up. I mean, if you're white here, you know, anyone could win this in my opinion. You've got so much. Now, don't get me wrong, it's still not fully won for white. You know, there's still a few things you've got to do to try and keep this. But even if you want to push this pawn up, it will work. If you want to, you know, double up rooks, it will work. If you want to try and get your queen and bishop, again, it should realistically work, as h5 is the move that was played, and very obviously h6 were played. Now, rook to g2, there was a miss as they had to go back, but this is where, you know, at this position, it was actually nearly level, as there was no actual threat going on here, and he was actually able to push this pawn, but he doesn't do it in the end. Caruana, and his only chance, I think, there goes. It's bishop to c2, then after rook d7, and 4.5 points up, the rooks are now doubled, and after rook to d8, we get the move. Rook takes g7, the brilliant move here, and after the knight captures, obviously the queen can capture. They even say that the best move was that, and there is actually a mate in 6 now, as the queen goes to f6, and whatever move happens here, bishop takes h6, and this is mate in 4, and this knight's going. We could just play any move here. I mean, you know, this looks like a free knight, but again, obviously it's not. You've just got check. Obviously, you couldn't take because this is mate, and then, you know, you've got this, and then you're going to have checkmate about 97 different ways. So, Mamedyarov won this game. So, what do we learn from this game? Well, obviously, if you want to know how to play the Nimzo-Indian, this obviously gives you a little bit more of an in-depth version of it, and you can see how, you know, even going aggressive as white, it plays off. But I think the key thing here that you should learn today is casting queenside. You know, it doesn't look the best half the time, and in a position like this, he actually loses a bit of his advantage here, Mamedyarov. Though, you know, it works, and the reason for that is how he was able to use this pawn attack at this later stage here. As you see, he just pushed all these pawns up, and, you know, he had this chain, which in the end won him the game. As you can see here, it just took a few moves, and it created this whole attack. So, hopefully what we can say there is, you now know queenside casting is fine, and just do it in the best scenarios possible. Now, don't get me wrong, the middle game, I feel like, you know, it's always a bit more difficult when you're in a position like this. Now, as black, what would I say you could try and learn, you know, from as blacks, obviously we say with the Nimzo-Indian, but just, I think this is a core reminder to make sure you get your pieces out properly and not end up with pieces like this. As we can see, not the best positioning for all of these pieces. This bishop not really able to do anything. This knight, same thing now. And even this knight, you know, it can't actually move to any square here other than back here. So, not the best. So that is going to be it for today's video. Hopefully you enjoyed this example game. So, thank you, and bye-bye.